Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Drewski with Cryptidwarfare and Conspiracies Podcast and CW Operations and Survival. Guys, hope you guys had a blessed week. Guys, we got a good episode for y'all. Before we get into that, if you guys got any encounters, if you guys got any prayer requests, or you guys just interested at all being on the show, want to talk about your experiences or anything comes to spiritual warfare, end times, paranormal, cryptids, anything like that, go ahead and shoot me an email. Cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. That's cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll chit chat and we'll just go from there. So if you guys could just give me a holla. Other than that, hope you guys are doing good. So, all right, guys, that's enough of that. All right, guys, I'm going to talk about our guest we got on today. This is good. I've been getting like a lot of people who are authors, I should say, and who write books and stuff like that. So I'm actually really excited about this one. So because for one, the whole Nephilim and all that stuff, and the whole I want to say about the whole conspiracy of it, but the whole truth of it when it comes to giants, Nephilim, Goliath, stuff like that. The whole Rephaim, and it's going to be good, guys. I'm going to introduce you our guest. His name is Adam Farris. I'm actually really excited about these books he's going to be talking about. And so basically, like 3 years ago, he was called to write the gritty David and Goliath graphic novel. It published last year, and I'll have him talk about it. And then it is called The Five Stones. And he's actually very excited to announce his second book, which is underway. He includes some pictures and is called The Great Fish, but it will be a gritty take on the Jonah story, except no whale, guys. He will encounter Leviathan. That's all I'm going to say. And then also too, he's also researching David's Mighty Men. That is going to be another hot topic on that too. So guys, may I introduce to you guys Adam Farris, brother. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Man, it's an honor. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, man. Let's get into it, man. Like wherever you want to start, let's go for it, man. We talk about your books, whatever you want. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, cool. So Adam Farris, writer, biblical researcher. 3 years ago, I was just normal distribution center manager. I've been a manager for 13 years, and that was my life. That was my direction. That's where I was going. Now, I was born and raised in the church, so I did have a faith background, but I left at 17. Things are things, and I've always been really, really inquisitive, and things have to make sense for me to be interested. So I had a lot of questions in the church. Not that I wasn't interested, but we come from the generation, that you don't question things. It was just, face value, and it didn't make sense. So anyway, I'm a career man. I'm managing a union at the time, and it was tough because I like teamwork and blah. Not going to go down that road, but I was getting beat down, and in the background, I just started wanting to write. I didn't understand it. It's not my normal thing. I'm a hands-on physical person, but it just was there. And comic books were my thing growing up.
There you
And I
go.
don't
Me too.
Yes, and I don't know if you ever heard of Propeller Man. It's a Dark Horse series, but it was my
Dude,
favorite.
I love the whole Dark Horse. You got Marvel, and then you got DC, and you got Dark Horse, dude. Yes,
Yes.
Hellboy, Predator, Aliens, all that. Yeah,
And that goes to this here, because that's what I was raised on, man. And The Mask before Jim
yep,
Carrey.
yeah. That was
So
a graphic comic, bro. That was good. That was a good comic.
yes, that's how I cut my teeth as a kid, and
Right.
that's what got me interested. Realness. Um, so anyway, so I'm like, man, what if I could write a screenplay for Propeller Man? And what I've learned was, God's working with you in your mind, and you don't realize it yet. Because listening is a big thing, and we'll talk about that. But so I just was doing this. September, the end of 2022, my father passed unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Huge on the family. It was a big, big deal. I was there. I had to be there for my mom. Like it was a lot. Couple months, you can imagine was pretty stressful. But in that time, I started thinking about David and Goliath constantly. And the way my mind works and my background, again, distribution is I'm big on root cause analysis. And that's really the way my mind works. And at this point now, I believe that that was God training me on how to actually study the Bible. Um, so I'm just thinking, the other things about David and Goliath. I'm just picking it apart. Eventually, I hit my hard point. I hit my bottom, because it was, father, and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I'm in my 40s, so
Yeah.
I got 4 kids. I got a lot. So it just was a thing. Well, I felt it all, and I'm super cognizant to details. So I'm just seeing all these things coming together, and I just tapped out and was like, God, I need help. I don't know what to do. I
Yeah.
don't know where to be. I don't know who to be. I really feel like you're telling me to write, and I feel like you're telling me to write David and Goliath. Um, I'm, you know, I'm tapping out. I need help. So whatever you're telling me to do, I'll do it. Just please help me take care of my family. You know what I mean? And it started slow, and I just started writing it, and I eventually, started talking to my family about it. And then, I put it out. While I was working on that, I was just reading the Bible and noticing different patterns and rhythms and things that were like super miscommunicated and over like glossed. So I started the blog because I wanted to, I knew I was writing five stones, and that was really the extent that I knew at that point.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to not talk about these things that I'm finding. So I started my blog 3 years ago too, and super quick reads of like, this thing, and I broke it down, blah, and we'll get into it. But this whole thing progressed over 3 years of literally finding how much more Nephilim and giants and hybrids there are in the Bible. That was the segue into it, was writing David and Goliath, because that put me right in the middle of it, and like David's Mighty Men and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been a crazy 3-year journey of like really diving in and dissecting um, who and what, where they came from, and the significance. Something crazy we'll talk about is everyone's heard of Gibberim,
Mm.
right? Everyone knows that word, but there's two others similar, Gadal and Goodly,
Okay.
and they're used and I'll use examples, but they're also used a lot of times with bigger height, bigger person, giant, whatever the case. So then, my mind's going like, "Oh, this is a different, painting than what we have." Um, it was way more giants and hybrid humans walking around. The first judge of Israel, Othniel, he's a lion man in some fashion.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of that's me, and that's what I've been doing, is just diving in, and with the focus to paint better pictures. I feel like, at this point now, like this is a lead thing, and I'm being a vessel, and it is awesome. It's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, of just, just to clear things up and help people get a better picture of the real stories.
Yeah. I got you, man. It's funny you're talking about that because um, I talk to Gary Wayne and Derek
Uh-huh.
Gilbert every now and then. Actually had Gary Wayne on my podcast twice, and I had Derek Gilbert and his wife on my podcast twice. But like on the avenue you're going, like they totally like dissect all that too, and it just kind of definitely opened up my mind on a new path on how awesome and craziness on how the Bible is, man. Because like you
Uh-huh.
said, people just take it just as basically people just take it just as a face value, right? They don't really dig. They don't take their time to really dissect it, and it just opens up so much, man, so much. And like well, I've also heard this too. Like I've heard a lot of people read the Bible and stuff like, oh, it's kind of boring. Like, dude, if you really take bites out of it and you dig into it, dude, it is, to me, it is like the perfect movie. in my opinion.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's yeah. Go ahead.
I really think that, and I'll say this and then we'll like dive in, but the Bible, man, it is a parable. It is there is a face value story, and then there's underlying stories. And I really do to my core think that there's a rhythm to learning the Bible. And it is literally you read it cover to cover one time and you just read it and you're gonna get hit with like this wild stuff. And it's gonna be hard. And a lot of the names, Jeroboam and Rehoboam, a lot of
I know, dude. Thank God for Google Translate.
no, but get through it. Then your second time, you're going to start noticing an odd pattern and an odd rhythm. And then I'm telling you, the third time, because this is 3 years for me, so I'm on my third time. The third time it clicks,
Yeah.
and it really, really clicks under the skin level. And it's not just like, oh yeah, well I remember this guy. Give you a wild example. So the story of the man from Moan, where he's in the Bible it says he's a great man, and he's a wealthy man, he's got a bunch of sheep. David is forming his militia, his mighty men, and they go to him to Nabal, the man from Moan, and say, hey, we've never had any conflict, we've lived here together and there's been no issues, can you help us out? Which is custom from back then. The world was different. It wasn't greedy to say, hey, I'm without, can you help me?
Yeah.
you know so the guy, which is really interesting, it says that it references him to being super rude. Here it is. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, as he was of the house of Caleb, which is another branch, because I
Hmm.
don't you've heard of Caleb and dogmen
Yes.
and stuff, right?
Yes.
So you see what I'm
Yep.
putting down now. Here's the biggest part. He is mentioned as a great man, but in Hebrew that word is gadol, like I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Gadol is an adjective for anything larger. Jonah was swallowed by a daggadol, a great fish.
Yeah.
Now, the oaks of Mamre, which we're going to get into that. Mamre is a Amorite giant. The trees, the oaks, are referred to as Gadol Etzis,
Okay.
great tree.
Yeah.
Put it all together. So, Moan was one of the areas conquered during the Promised Land.
Hmm.
So Nabal was a leftover. He wasn't a giant, but he was bigger than humans because he was a Gadol. And he comes from the line of Caleb. So
Okay.
he was not, again, totally human. So then when David and his men go to him and be like, hey, look, we've never had any issues. Can you help us out? It resonates a little bit louder now,
Hmm.
because the promised land, the conquering of the promised land, was to get all the giants out.
Yep.
Y'all are bad. You got to go. Now you notice that Gershrites, Maccathites, some Anakim, and some Jebusites did stay over. They
Hmm.
weren't, it says it in different times that they didn't conquer them all, and they
Yeah.
cohabitated.
But not only that too,
Wh-
David was known for also being a giant slayer as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
why if you think about why all these giants and hybrids were joining with David, it's because of his reputation. You just said
Yep.
it. Because and this is I'm gonna go right into five stones, but I believe at that time there's enough there's enough evidence that we were no longer scared of giants, that they were part of our fabric. They
Yeah.
were pyramids.
Coexisting. Yeah.
Yes, pyramids, Baalbek, Göbekli Tepe, Quran Tepe. If you put, I did a blog on this. If you do the megalithic map of just the Middle East,
Yeah.
matches all of the megalithic structures in the Middle East. The I should say this specifically, the tribes, the Canaanite tribes.
Yeah.
It matches perfectly. It's just like
Yeah.
overlays. But we're I believe, obviously, it's spiritual warfare. We're being coerced to think it's something else
Yeah.
when it is literally giants and hybrids, and that's so think about that Moan story. They were living, coexisting with this really tall guy. Um, and they were pointing out like, hey, we haven't had any conflict. Remember, y'all were supposed to go, and you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So in Five Stones, I try to emphasize all of that. When you see Goliath, the first time you see him, he's ragtag armor, just a rural giant. But there's five giants always. It's not just Goliath. You know, they're not in the Bible specifically at that time, but they're in the background in Five Stones because it's a hidden message. But then the next time you see Goliath, he's head to toe suit of armor because the Philistines have, they were sea people. They came in, conquered the land, saw these giants. Were like, hey, join in with us,
Yeah.
because that's what was happening. People were just working with giants. Solomon had 70,000 stone carriers in his group, and he had 80,000 stone cutters. Before it's mentioned that, it says that Solomon transcribed his workforce from the leftover inhabitants from the Promised Land. It's not going to say from the leftover giants,
Yeah.
but it's those tribes. It's the Jebusites,
Oh.
Girgashites, Perizzites, like literally. And
Yeah.
those are the patterns that you start catching,
Okay. That's nuts, dude. Okay. I like that.
right? Now, to get really wild, Nabal, that Gadol, that he ends up, he gets drunk, gets sober, realizes how bad he just messed up, and he has a heart attack.
Mhm.
David marries his wife,
Yes. I remember that.
and that is, I believe it's Absalom's mom. No, no, no. I'm sorry. That is Chileab, who is his mom's Abigail. Was she a giant? Because that was already Nabal's wife.
Yeah.
So was she a giant too?
Well, either way,
And
she had his DNA in him, so I'm just saying, like, you know.
well, dude, Uriah, the story of Uriah and Bathsheba.
Hmm.
Uriah is a Hittite and was one of David's mighty men. So
That's
he's
right.
confirmed. So was Bathsheba a giant? And
That,
it really interesting. I don't remember the scripture right off, but the way that the pattern goes, it talks about how it confirms that the inhabitants of the promised land co-inhabited. They didn't, blah blah blah. But then the next two scriptures are literally says, and those inhabitants took Israeli wives, and the Israeli men took wives of those inhabitants.
mm, dude. Okay, this is good stuff.
So you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like how, and that's why I say the painting is off, because it's 50-50, right? Either humans were having giant wives or they weren't. But we know, when David messes up and takes the census, and the three, God gives him the three
Mhm.
judgments.
Yeah.
The plague stops at the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite. We already know Jebusites are giants.
Hmm.
That backs that, there's redemption for everybody. You know what I mean? Because he was just you know what a threshing floor is, meaning he
Yeah.
was he was domestic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't say he had sheep and all this stuff. So he was a domestic. He had a house, and he was an honorable man because when it stopped at the threshing floor, David said, I'll buy it. And Ornan's like, no, 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 it's my honor to give it to you. And David insisted, no, I'm going to do the right thing. We're going to buy it from you. That suggests that Ornan was respected. They didn't
Yeah.
just take me like, you're a Jebusite, we're taking it from you.
Yeah. Dude, I can, I'm gonna go back and start crushing this. This is good stuff, man.
Appreciate it.
Dude. Okay,
So,
cool.
so yeah, and that's why I say that my time in distribution, because I give God all the glory and all the honor. Um, I'm nobody. We're wretches. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But I have 14 years of like grains of sand investigation, like getting to the nitty gritty. So when I read the Bible, I'm noticing patterns, like the three sons of Zariah, if you're
Hmm.
familiar with those guys. So the pattern is, Adam, son of Bill, right? Or if something happened to Adam, it would say, Adam had, such and such. Adam died and blah. His wife was remarried by, it always specifies that.
Yeah.
When it gets to Zariah, it goes right to Zariah. Zariah had 3 sons, Joab, Abiashi, and Ashael. Da 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 da. Zariah is David's sister. We know that anytime someone's not listed, it's generally because of bad DNA.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what
Gotcha.
I mean? So um, later on, Joab is passed over as head guard for Amasa because Amasa is the son of a man.
Okay.
What other kind of son is there? So you put those two together, and then you look at Joab, Abiashi, and Ashael, and what did they do? Well, Ashael, you remember he chased down uh, the chariot, so
Yeah.
super fast.
Super fast.
Um,
Yeah.
Joab conquered Jebus by himself. And another really tiny detail, when he killed Absalom, he took 3 spears in one hand. I believe to my core that there are little details in the Bible to give you like size comparison and ratios.
Yeah.
Because I can put myself in other people's shoes. If I'm gonna kill somebody and there's a bunch of spears, I know I would go for both hands.
Yeah.
So that's a detail to give you how big the guy was.
Yeah.
The big old hands.
Seriously, man.
Right? And then you look at Absalom, and it talks about how he only cut his hair once a year when it was 3 pounds. And it's like, well, that's kind of well, Absalom comes so David, his wives came from Hebron and Jerusalem. Bloodlines. Bloodlines is everything. Jerusalem was Jebus, the civilization of Jebusites until they conquered it and made it the land of David.
Yeah.
So he married his wife in Jebus. You know what I mean? And his other wives, he married them in Hebron. And this is heavy because Hebron, do I got it? Very important detail. It basically says that Hebron is older than Egypt. Hebron was used to be known as Kirith Arba, Arba being the father of Anak.
Okay.
So that's where David married a good chunk of his wives. That's where uh and this is going to go into goodly because David's son where is it at? This is super important. Goodly is another significance of height. One of his sons from Hebron was a goodly man. Now Benaiah killed a goodly Egyptian. Good, I'm bouncing. Benaiah is one of David's 37 mighty men.
Yeah.
And Benaiah killed a goodly Egyptian. The story goes he took the spear from the Egyptian and killed him with it. And Benaiah also killed 2 lion-faced men of Moab and a
Mm,
lion.
yeah.
So if you look at those details, Benaiah is
Big
pretty
dude. Yeah.
yeah. Um and goodly is also used to describe Saul. And what do you remember about Saul? Saul is
Saul
a good
was. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going. Yeah.
God, Saul was a goodly man. He was shoulders to head taller than everyone.
Yep. He was very noticeable. Yep.
So a goodly Egyptian, and then one of David's sons was a goodly man from
That's good.
Hebron, the land of Kirith Arba, Arba being the father of Anak. And also one of David's mighty men is an Arbite. Arbite.
Hmm.
And it says that, again, not all the Anak giants were rooted out. So of course some of them are going to be like, "Hey man, David, hey, I get it. I get it. I'm gonna walk with you because you seem like a good dude." So apply this. It's a different world, man.
Dude, that's nuts, dude. Yeah, that is definitely good stuff. Yeah, I can't wait till this one comes out. Keep going, brother. Keep going.
So, yeah. So David's mighty men, man. He has. We'll start with Obed Edom. Obed Edom. The way it goes is David's kind of on the run. He's run from Saul, and then
Hmm.
obviously his Adonijah tries to take two of his kids. Adonijah and Absalom try to take the kingdom from him, and he's a lot. David has a tough life, so he has the ark. You remember the cart moved, and the
Yep.
guy reached over and touched the ark. Well, he dies because he's not a Levitical priest.
Yep.
Hey, that's the law of the land. So they leave the ark with Obed Edom. Obed Edom is a Gittite. We know later on Goliath is a Gittite.
Yep.
And you could argue, well, is it the same kind of whatever? Well, David and Samuel the seer chose uh, people specifically on their genealogy to be the show Aram for the temple. Everyone's got a place.
Hmm.
Levitical, this and this. Well, the show Aram was the genealogically tracked gatekeepers.
Okay.
King James version calls them the porters. It was an
Yeah.
actual.
Yes. Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. So you're telling me Obed Edom, the Gittite, was chosen because of his line to be a bodyguard, a security guard for the temple. That's a big old boy, right? And that's
Hmm.
again something that's like glossed over. So then, as that story goes, David, he's found out his son's trying to kill him, and he's having a really hard time with it. He's climbing a hill, and he's just, this dirt on the head. You know how they mourn back in the day,
Yeah.
and he asks God, you know, please help me with this situation, man. I don't know what to do. Please. He gets to the top of the hill. His friend Hushai the Archite is at the top of the hill, dirt on his head, mourning for David because he's heard the same news. Archite is one of the tribes from the promised land that had to go.
Hmm.
Archite means to belong.
Dude, there is so many freaking giants in this, dude. Yeah. Keep going. This is good.
And this is like him starting. He hasn't even, and that's what's so wild about the Mighty Men, because he didn't like it wasn't intentional. It just kind of, again, it's so many different stories on delayed. Like that he doesn't get to build the temple for God. His son does because
Hmm.
of all the wars. I think everybody's got a role. Everybody's got something they're really, really good at. David had a pretty tough life, so he's used to like trying to take up for himself. And then all of these bads of the bads flock to him, and it makes his so that's like that was his role. He was 14, he killed a bear and a lion by hand.
Hmm.
So he's just a super that's what he was used for. He's a super strong guy. So anyway, so as he's going through and they're leaving the town, he stops by Ittai, the commander of the 600 Gittites.
Okay. Yep.
600 well, we got to confirm that that's giants. And David's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You need to go back." And Ittai's like, "No, we stand with you."
Yeah.
So a 601, right? Because they have a captain. Uh, army of giants pledge allegiance to David. Like, no, we're following you, dude. So, because he already had, he's got his what's left of his sons of Zariah, and he's got Benaiah with him. He's got his little group. So as this happens and they go, um, backtrack for a second. They had just it's really wild how they did it. They conquered Moab, and they basically they had everybody lying. This is a little brutal, but it is what it is. He had everybody lying down, face down on the ground, and they would take a string, and every so many feet they would kill. And basically, which not my place, Thanos, but
Yeah.
right. But basically, it was giving everyone else an option: join with us, or you can head on out. But you guys are bad, and I'm showing some mercy because Moab. again, for all these stories to make sense, we have to accept the Nephilim aspect. You
Yeah,
have
you
to,
do. You got to.
right? Because say David strung a string out and killed every 2 feet, killed an Adam Farris. That's horrible. But if he strung a string out and every 2 feet or 3 feet he killed a lion man,
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
kind of
a
makes it makes it okay a little bit. Yeah, it makes it okay. Yeah,
right. And again, I feel like that's the basis of this is God. If I can be so bold, God's like, look, I put a book out with all these crazy details. Talk about all of them because the story's not going to make sense if you don't.
yeah,
Right? And who am I? I'm nobody. But that's really where I feel like, man, like just like when I talked about the guy from Moan. Now it makes more sense of. So um anyway, so after he did the 2 feet or whatever, all those guys joined with him. Specifically, the Cherethites and the Pelethites join with him, and they are his initial bodyguard. And they are known in the land as deadly mercenaries. It's wild because Philistines and sea people, it is not one thing. You see Philistine 100 million times, but it's not like an entity. Because I went down a rabbit hole to try to figure out the Cherethites and the Pelethites. And Cherethites come from the land of Crete, the island of Crete.
yeah,
And the Pelethites come from somewhat similar, but I think that they are the Peliset people, which is an actual, you can look them up. It's an actual people. But everybody at that time was just getting out, going everywhere else. And ill intent, there's a lot of ill intent. There was a lot of conquering at that time. So it's really interesting that in the Philistines, there was a small group of just like guns for hire, and they were just known as like the nastiest dudes. And I think they were like like they weren't like all giants and they weren't all humans. It was just this ragtag group of people that literally just as this story goes, where I was saying, they just joined in with him and were like, we're your dudes. And Joab, one of the sons of Zariah, ends up being no, Benaiah. I'm sorry. Benaiah becomes the head guard over those guys,
yeah,
and he would be over like deadly missions essentially. He'd be
yeah,
like, "Hey, we're gonna go to this guy's causing trouble. I'm gonna take the Cherethites and Pelethites, and we'll be back."
yeah. Those guys are basically almost like a special forces. Just gonna go wreak havoc, do his thing, come back. We got it. Yeah,
Which is wild, right?
yeah,
So so all of that accumulates together. And then he's that's when the militia starts coming in, and then in Second Samuel 23, it's wild how it goes. There's the initial there's the I want to say the official 37 mighty men, but then in Chronicles, it's it's the same list minus like one or two like misspellings or whatever. But then there's a group, and it doesn't say how many because it's like one line is like the sons of, so it could be, but there's this one group from Ziklag that join in with them. And Ziklag at that time, if you track it, are like Amalekites and Edomites and just like beastly people. And then there's a group of 11 lion-faced men from Gad that join up specifically with David. Group of lion-faced men, swift as rose. So he's got this really like wild motley crew of an army. Just people pledging allegiance to him. And
dude.
then yeah.
Go ahead. And then,
So when you start breaking down who they are, man, that took a long time with that. Um
how long did
he's
that
got
take you to just to weave your way through that? Do that? It take you like because with me that would probably take me a good couple years, dude. Like good 5 years just to.
yeah, so this it is wild. It's been 3 years. Um, but it's slowly I was picking these pieces together, and then like when I was doing my blog, I eventually looked back and saw like it was all connected. So I already, not intentionally, but I had already been doing a lot of legwork.
Mm.
So then I was able to easily come back apply stuff.
Yeah.
Like Benaiah. Benaiah is the son of Jehoiada, a man of chivalry. These are hard words to get out, dude.
Yeah, better you than me, man.
Dog, I was laughing with my buddy yesterday, and I'm like, I'm in the world of big words now. So, but but he's a chivalrous man from Kebzel, and that goes a lot of different ways. So Jehoiada, what I do is if I see something, just like I would do in distribution, I isolate that. You got to look at I'll talk work like in a transactional environment. Everything is beginning to end. You ordered a tire, we picked it, we shipped it, you got it.
Yeah.
You have to look at everything as it did happen. And then that way you can say like, all right, so they didn't get the tire. All right, well, there are any tires left over on the truck. You know what I mean? And then you know how to research these things. So what I do is I isolate a scripture and I'll check all the translations.
Yeah.
And I rely heavily on Orthodox Jewish and the King James and the Living Bible.
Yeah.
Um, Orthodox Jewish is you're gonna get the real word, just like Gadol and Goodly, where hey, he was a great man, stuff like that. King James backs it up, but the Living Bible gets right down to the bloody, brutal truth. So, and I'll bounce around. Um,
Hey,
doing that,
name those three Bibles again. So I'm gonna write those as
yeah,
notes. What was it? The King James. I know the King James.
Orthodox Jewish and the Living Bible, TLB. TLB is my favorite. That was the second time that I read the Bible cover to cover because that's what I do. That's my thing is to read each. It's a
All right.
different translation.
The Orthodox Jewish, and then what was the other one? Last one.
The Living Bible.
The Living Bible. Okay. Okay, gotcha. King James, Orthodox Jewish, and Living Bible.
Yep. So the Living Bible is the only one that says that Jehoiada came from a family of 22 fighting priests.
All right.
Which, I mean, geez. And then that kind of explains more about Benaiah and why he was so significant. And in my next book, Great Fish, because you see what I do is I put the supernatural into the stories. I don't
Yes.
hold back. You know what I mean? The wilder, the crazier. So Benaiah in the Midrash, because Benaiah, um, he becomes Solomon's head guard too. So he goes through the line. It's speculated that Benaiah found the shamir, the stone cutting worm, for Solomon, and that's how Solomon was cutting his stones. So in Great Fish, the story with the gourd, I suggested it's the shamir. Because if you think about it, a man sitting here Indian style, a gourd grows big enough to be shade for him,
Yeah.
and it gets eaten and falls down and withers without him even noticing. Logistically, for that to happen, it couldn't be a little, you know, apple worm.
Yeah.
And that's the way my mind works. So I'm like, all right. So I found the Shamir thing. So we put that in there. And that's why we go with Leviathan too, because Dag Gadol, big fish or great fish, it has to be big.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So we go so as Benaiah and Joab and you start breaking down who David's mighty men were. Of course, in Orthodox Jewish, they are the Gibborim.
Mm,
You know, that's the significance of that word. But he's got two Ahoites. AH means to howl. OAH is for an unknown beast. They didn't have a name for it.
yeah.
They were Ohaites. Ohaites. They were like werewolf men kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
just two of them. He had multiple giants, and they were all ranging from like appalling destruction to mountainous to the Adino the Etsny. which is the ETZ is for tree. Tree, yeah,
This is good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And something wild I found, and I don't want to swear by it yet, but I'm pretty sure, but I'm still doing research on it. Um, the Herodite is listed 3 times, and then only 2 times in the Jewish version is actually Herodite. The 3rd mention of it is Charodi, has a C in front of it, charity.
Okay. Yeah.
So I start going down the rabbit holes of that, and charity are an ancient people from India.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, wouldn't it be wild if there was some megalithic structures near that area? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're familiar. There absolutely are.
There is.
So it's like, were people from other lands coming and joining this dude too?
Yeah. It's almost like they got like this beacon. Like, okay, we're going this way, and they know who to talk to, which is David, and that's insane, dude. He's a giant slayer, but yet he's getting all these ragtag freaking giants, dude, helping him out at the same time.
Well, that speaks to the bigger picture here, right?
Yeah.
The painting that we have is there was one giant in the Bible, and he wasn't even really giant. He's probably like 9 foot tall. And David was just, poor fella. And then he was a, like you said, he's a giant slayer and all this. That actually magnifying glass is a completely different story. Like Goliath was a big monumental person,
Mm-hmm.
and there were 5 giants there in battle. You know, of course there were more, but there were 5 specifically. We know that because of the 5 stones.
Yep.
And that again is a little marker to so we can get a size. He wouldn't grab 5 if he was scared he was going, he wouldn't. Point of the story is faith. He wasn't scared he was going to miss.
Yeah.
And in 5 stones, I intentionally, because 5 stones for me, being my first book and being the segue into all this crazy stuff, it needed to be really, really punchy, really punk, and like in your face. And I didn't feel like, not that I didn't change the story, by any stretch, but I do mention it in the book. I take liberties of isolating certain things of the story.
Okay.
And I feel like, again, for my first book to make the waves that it needed to, I kind of had to do that.
Yeah.
So specifically, and I'll go through the whole thing, but like the armor part with Saul, he comes in and he gets the armors from Saul and it doesn't fit and this and this
Yep.
and this and this. Anybody that is not familiar, read the whole story. It's a great story. The point is, this 14-year-old boy killed a bear and a lion by hand. This 14-year-old boy has been pretty much excommunicated by his family. No one cares about him. He's just a punk kid. He has this like brute strength at a young age. And the only person, by the story, the only person that actually loved him was God.
Yep.
Plain and simple. The only person that accepted David for David was God. So let some giant be running their mouth about his one friend. So
Yep.
in five
Ride,
stones,
ride or die, man. Ride or die.
oh, so in 5 stones, you have to feel that. So in 5 stones, when he's sent to check on his brothers, logistically, what would have happened was he would have walked. Well, he does. It says it. He walks up to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So I follow that part of the story. He walks up with the stuff. He hears it. But in 5 stones, he don't know. Grabs the stones, he handles business, and he takes care of Goliath right then and there.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. And I do acknowledge. I don't want to mislead anybody, so I do acknowledge that I took specific liberties. But like even on the beginning of the story, Amalekites and the call for their extermination has been super misunderstood
Yeah.
and has been used as a bargaining chip against our Father in heaven. So in 5 stones, when you see Amalekites, I feel like I'll let you know why. First time you see them, they're eating human legs. And they're not human. They're half this and they're half that. They're they've got somebody on the grill, and then the next time you see them, they're going through the marketplace killing people. Amalekites were lickers of blood. They were a hybrid in some fashion. They were cannibals. You know, there's scriptural evidence of them, from the Esau line and how bad that is
Yeah.
and how bad it goes. So, boom, when you get into the book, right then you've got, visual evidence, visual representation of why they were so bad. And then this, my favorite picture right here behind me. When I was reading the story and doing my research, all I saw was blue and red
Yeah.
because it was like backing everything that I just said. It was backing all of what we think and we speculate was, Samuel's like, no, no, they cannot continue. God said this. And and Samuel, something I've been really holding on to is, we hear Samuel the
Yeah.
prophet. He is known as Samuel the seer.
Hmm.
I think that's super like more deep inside of you because there are prophets, Nathan the prophet, you know what I mean, Isaiah the prophet, but he's a seer, and there wasn't a lot of seers. So these were guys that were getting visual images constantly, right? Seer,
Yeah.
there's a different in roles on purpose. So he saw, I'm sure that he probably saw the end of the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that I've been on the planet 40 some years and I've never heard at that point 3 years ago, I'd never heard that Samuel killed King Agag. Yeah, I've never, that's not
Yeah.
something that because think about when you think of David and Goliath, you don't think about Samuel killing King Agag. And who's King Agag? Well, obviously he's from the Amalekites, but the king aspect is tells you everything because certain translations of Nimrod call him the first of the kings.
Yeah.
So put in and there's more examples, but put king together in your mind. Those were the worst of the Nephilim trying to conquer lands,
Yep.
you know? So King Agag was big ringleader,
He's
was
a
a
bad
giant.
dude. Yeah.
Yes, I have them for visual because I do believe atavism is the way my mind works is I look at it like I don't look at it like a biblical story. I look at it like me and you.
Yeah.
How could it actually happen? And I'm big into science. Atavism is benign traits being triggered under a specific stressor that can cause animal traits, going back to animalistic, stuff, schizophrenia, red hair, like things that are in your genes that just never happen, or you get in a car wreck, or in Lot's situation, there's an incestual relationship, and it
Yeah.
kicks that benign gene, and then all of a sudden you got lion kids. So um, King Agag, I've got him 18 foot. He's got horns coming out of, because we've all seen that. So
Yeah.
I tried to again put what we know into the story. The Amalekites are red skin. The Goliath and his people are pale skin with blonde hair. And I went blonde because I already used red. So I didn't, I tried to cover all the bases because I
Yeah.
know they're pale with red hair, but splitting hairs. Um, so yeah, so I had to emphasize, you see this 18-foot horned giant getting slayed because that bloodline has to stop.
Yeah.
And then, like I mentioned with Goliath, and I wanted to show that giants were being used at that time. They were battering rams, and they were being because the speculation of uh, Goliath being the king of Gath. Whether he was or he wasn't, that's not my place. But my details, because I stay straight with the Bible. I don't take from anything else.
Yeah.
He would have said, "I'm the king of Gath. What are you doing?" He didn't. He said, "Am I not Philistine? Are you not a servant of Saul?" So he's recognizing I'm a servant of Philistine. Aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, aren't you on my same level?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? I feel, and I could be wrong. It is what it is. I feel like he would have acknowledged, I'm a king. What are you talking about? So that backs my point that they were just being used. In Five Stones, I have Goliath and his family building pyramids in the background. I think that there's absolutely evidence all over the world that that's what was happening.
Oh,
So
100%, dude.
yeah, so yeah, that's in a nutshell, man. I'm just trying to dive into all these crazy details and just share them, man.
Dude, that is good stuff, man. Um, buddy, you're gonna have me go down this wormhole yet again. This is good though. This is good. Of course, I'm gonna take a. I'm gonna stop because right now on our Bible study we're actually in Ephesians right now, but I'm gonna take a break from that and drop back in the Old Testament and go over what you're talking about. This is good stuff, dude. Okay, so, oh, dude, I got so much stuff, so many questions, but
Yeah,
okay, I am
hit
curious
me.
about the whole Leviathan.
Yes.
Okay, kind of tap into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the way my mind works is it has to make sense all the way through. I've said it a million times. I don't like to look like a dummy.
Yeah,
That's what I would tell my guys at work. Be like, look, let's think things through. I don't like to look like a dummy, and we're all here together. If you look dumb, I look dumb. So if I'm gonna go with something other than a whale, which it's not a whale. Let's get past that. It wasn't a whale.
yeah,
Technically, it was a dagadol, a great fish. Um, so first, it has to be big enough for this to make sense. It can't be just sitting in the belly and then stomach acids and digestion, and it was swallowed. So the mouth has to be big enough to swallow. You know what I mean? But it was still, a fish in what in some fashion or whatever. So as I'm reading, I'm noticing a pattern with Leviathan. Every time Leviathan is mentioned, it's mentioned as being used by God.
yes,
It's not just, it's a thing. So I'm like, all right, um, Dagadol, it's a large animal. um, it says that God commanded a Dagadol to swallow Jonah. It wasn't as Jonah fell in the water, a fish got him. It was specific. God
mhm,
ordered this. And then every time you see Leviathan, it's the same situation. So as an author, I'm like, you know what? A, we don't know, but B, I'm not pulling strings. Like that does line up.
yeah,
So, I prayed about it and I thought about it and was like, all right, you know, I need to focus on the crazy supernatural stuff. That's what this is all about. Let's do this. So I'm actually working with this phenomenally talented guy in Brazil,
yeah,
João Felipe, and I told him when I wrote the script, um, I instead of like description, I would put the Bible verse, and I would and in that I would just put the Bible verse. You know what I mean? Multiple heads, scales, blah. And when we talked, I was like, first, I don't want to know. I want to be surprised too, because this is super important to me.
yeah,
But the point is, only take description from the Bible.
yep,
Only. Because some of them contradict and some of them go together, right? Does
gotcha,
Leviathan have one head or does he have multiple heads?
yeah,
Because that is mentioned. So I'm like, look, this is a fun one for us to decipher. Whatever you can come up with is going to be awesome. So yeah,
yeah.
that's what we're doing with Leviathan, and man, I can't wait. I can't wait for it.
When when is it when is this expected to come out?
We are shooting for the end of this year. We are a good way into it, and I do the painting too. So once he gets me the black and white, I print out a
Yeah,
watercolor, and then that's something I can't rush. But but yeah, we're shooting for the end of the year, man. A lot of these conversations are just trying to build up, you know, some interest for it, and when it comes out, we can kind of hit the ground running with it.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah, when it definitely comes out, dude, I got to have you back on to talk about it for sure, man.
Appreciate that.
Good stuff, dude. This is good stuff. I gotta go back and look at the stuff up now. It's driving me nuts now. Like I just gotta just start crushing this. But yeah, so as far as because I wrote down here in my notes. So as far as I got the King James except for the Orthodox Jewish one and the Living Bible. Do you have the physical copies, or do you just go off the internet as you go?
Oh yeah, man. So I'm a big collector of like antique vintage Bibles. Right here
Yes.
beside me, I've got a bookshelf of like I've got my wife found this monster bicentennial, like a 1976.
Yeah.
The Living Bible that I read the second time was a 1971 print.
Nice.
Yes. Um, I use Bible Gateway for my research because again, I can isolate scripture and check all the translations. That's a big part of my research because and it's not just one thing. Some intent was they didn't understand what the word was.
Yeah.
Some intent they didn't want to talk about what it was. I need to know what it is for my research. So, like Isaiah 34, when they mentioned the sire, the he goat,
Mhm.
a lot of translations say wild goats,
Yeah.
and we're missing a huge piece of the
We're
puzzle.
missing the
So,
freaking the meat and potatoes of this freaking thing, man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's why I lean again on the Orthodox Jewish. You know, I want the real words
Yeah.
because to be redundant, gadol, great, goodly. You know, we all know the one G, but there's two other words that describe giants too, and then we're just like straight missing. You know, because like Saul, um, height, high places, stature are like super prevalent in a lot of the stories, and they have you just read over it like Saul.
Yeah.
Saul was picked because he was tall,
Yep.
right? And then you go through the lines and you know where he comes from, but they also mention uh, Jesus's stature. Now, no, Jesus wasn't a giant, and that's I'm not being blasphemous. My point is that his stature is mentioned,
Hmm.
so there's a reverence to being high and tall, and you got to know that, right? The Nephilim is a big part of the Bible. Genesis 6, but
Yep.
then First Corinthians 11:10 at the end of the book, you know, for
Yeah. Yeah.
so it for us to not take that it was just a constant thing, because like in First Corinthians 11:10, I'm sure you're familiar. It says women need to have power over their heads because of the angels.
Yes.
Translated through Orthodox Jewish, it means to have head wrappings.
Yep.
To pre So you're telling me in Gen 6, angels were coming down and taking wives, but in First Corinthians, it's still happening.
Yep.
Not only is it still happening, we done caught on and we got a way out of it. You put a covering over the head, they don't know you're a female and you won't be grabbed and you won't give birth to a giant.
Yep.
So it's just like you gotta you don't get the right picture if you don't take that in too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And then in all that, I don't know, have you put a lot of research into John the Baptist and Elijah?
Yes and no, but go ahead where you going.
So, um, uh, Jesus says specifically, oh, and it's a few times that, are you prepared to accept that John the Baptist is Elijah? And, I've talked to a lot of people, and again, that's well, he's saying that, he was looked at because Elijah was a great guy.
Well, not only that, they kept asking him, "Are you Elijah?" They
He's
specifically
like,
kept asking him. Yeah.
he's like,
Yep.
no, no, I'm not. That is a very, very, very deep story and a deep meaning. So I do agree that John the Baptist didn't know, or at least didn't think of himself like that.
Yeah.
But the description of John the Baptist I grew up with was, he was a wild, hairy man.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm sorry. No, yeah. He was a wild, hairy man.
Yeah. Freaking
Um,
it drank honey, ate bugs. Yeah.
yeah, and he had a garment of camel hair with
Yep.
a leather belt. And that's what I was getting mixed up. So John the Baptist is always talked about with the garment of camel hair. Elijah is the one I got backwards. Elijah was the one that's always referenced as being a hairy guy.
Yeah.
The Orthodox Jewish version, hairy guy means garment of camel hair
Hmm. Okay.
with a leather belt around his waist.
Coincidence? I think not.
So the way I look at things, Elijah was a wild man, wore a garment of camel hair with a leather belt around his waist, and he was such a good man that God took him. He went to walk with the Lord.
Hmm.
And then John the Baptist, a wild guy, wearing a garment camel hair, leather belt around his waist. And the underlying there is goes back to the Nephilim aspect, right? Because John the Baptist was angelic conception, just like Jesus was.
Yes.
John the Baptist's mom was Mary's sister, I think, or cousin.
Yep.
I
Cousin.
think.
Cousin. Yeah.
Tell me those all don't go together.
Yep. I hear you.
So, um, is there reincarnation? Is there you being used as a vessel of a former person and you don't really know it? Right? I mean, that's
Hmm.
a so once I started putting those pieces together, I'm like, man, that's a bigger story there. Why he was the one paving the way for Jesus, right?
Hmm.
And then when Jesus came, he was like, "Oh, no, you baptize. I can't. I can't."
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to tie your shoes. Yeah.
It was all connected, and that's how awesome God is, right? Because he's in the back, and again, I was talking to my buddy yesterday, and we have a lot in common. We both think like super analytical, and
Yeah.
I'm bringing him in, to God and stuff. And we were talking, and he was like, "Dude, I appreciate the way you think because I think the same way you block." And I was like, "All right, but let me match you and raise you." That's how God thinks. God is
Yeah.
super analytical, and he plans, and he's there, and he does, and he's an engineer, and he's an architect.
He's a god of order, my friend. Straight up.
Yes. Yes. So I was able to connect those pieces for my buddy, and this is a 20-year friend. He's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I can put it in a real place for him to understand. And I'm not like, oh, God and church, because there are places for that. Everyone has a role. You know what I mean? Like watchman, cherub. You know what I mean? Everybody has a role. And I think that God is going to use, especially now. I mean, it's undeniable that God's like super working right now.
Yes, for real, 100%.
And it's awesome that he's using so many different people in different ways. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's wild to see it. And then we we come from a different place, man. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's good stuff, man. Um, Shoot, brother. But yeah, dude, you're gonna have to definitely keep me posted on that book once it's coming out. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we hit it. I mean, if you got any questions or anything, I mean, I we could keep going and going and going about these crazy giants, man.
Yeah, dude, I definitely got to have you back on again. We got to definitely get this date going. I got to plug you in a date for sure. I am going to send you off to basically to a couple other buddies of mine that have podcasts too. They're Christians, man. Dude, they would love to have you on, my friend, for
That's
sure,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It means a
Yeah, for
lot.
sure, dude. Oh, heck yeah, man. Before we go, yeah, dude, definitely. Well, you and I got each other's number, so we're gonna be texting a
Mhm.
lot more. So,
Yeah.
as far as that, what advice could you give the listeners? This is gonna be like a loaded question. So one for the listeners, what could you give them? One, if they're brand new to the faith and they want to dive deep into this stuff, where to start. Also, two, to add on to that, if certain people are Christians, have been in the game for a while, if they want to start to this, what advice could you give them on where to start? Maybe what Bibles to use to break it down, pathways, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, complex answer for you. Just start. Honestly, the first time you do it, if you really want to like jump into this thing, the first time, just choose an easy, like an up to date translation, because you really just got to get it in your head. Your second time, which it does need to be three times. To my core, I really believe that's the order to this. Second time, get you a really good old translation because you're gonna go over stories, but then see it in a different way. Um, and then you're gonna be able, at that point you'll have retained stuff, so you can start connecting dots. The key thing I would say is listening, learning how to listen, because we're programmed with a lot of crazy stuff in our head. It's 2025. Um, it's easy to talk to God. It's not easy to listen. And he's going to talk in different ways. He's going to talk through people. He's going to talk, with what you're reading. So just really think about what listening means. And then once you've got two times into it, it's going to really start connecting. And then I feel like you'll have enough foundation. You can do your research. Don't take Look at it as a normal, no frills story, and let the spikes stand out to you. And anything that sounds weird, like a great man from Moan, it's weird on purpose. It's a parable. It's meant to stand out to you. Once you have that foundation, you'll know this isn't right, and you'll know what to jump into and what to research.
Roger that, man. Cool. Where can people find you? Where can people support you at? Where can people get your books at?
Yes, I'm on Instagram, eadamfarris. My book, fivestones.bigcartel.com. And then my blog is eadamfarris at substack.com. I did start a YouTube page here recently so I can kind of get more in depth.
Ah,
Yes. So, because some of these blogs, yeah, I shoot for a short read, but some of them, they're really in depth. So I got the YouTube video, Adam Farris on YouTube, 2 to 3, minute videos to give me time to really get into the nitty gritty on stuff. I'm an accessible person. I really love to talk about this. So anybody can reach out, questions, comments, concerns, whatever. I'm here.
awesome. Cool stuff, brother. Yeah, man. Definitely got to get you back on for sure, dude. Yeah, I'm definitely really excited. And yeah, dude, I'm going to get me a book, my friend. I really, really want to check this out. So this is going to be good. So yeah, man.
Appreciate
Yeah. And not only that, yeah, if all you guys are listening, I'm gonna have all his information in the show notes, so it's gonna be in there. You guys want to get a hold of him? Go down the show notes, click it. It'll go directly to his Instagram, Gmail, all that stuff. So you guys got any questions for Adam? Hit him up. This guy's a wealth of knowledge. So Adam, dude, I appreciate you, man, coming on here, hanging out, fellowshipping, spitting some truth. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff,
Yep,
dude.
it was fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Before we go, don't go anywhere yet. I'll end it, and then we'll chat a little more, and then we'll go. So, all right, that's all I got. My mind is blown right now. So this is good stuff. I'm definitely gonna go back and start grinding on this. So I'm chewing it up. So this is good stuff, guys. Other than that, guys, like I said, you guys got any questions for Adam? I'm gonna have all his information in the show notes. Hit him up. Go listen to his YouTube channel. I just found you on IG. I just hit you up. So, um, but yeah, if you guys want to, listen to his YouTube channel, learn some stuff, guys, and just dig into the word, guys. But other than that, you guys got any information? You guys want to chat? You guys got any prayer requests? Any experiences like that? You guys want to be on the show? Hit me up, cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. That's cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, Cryptid Warfare, and that's it, guys. So if you guys yeah, for us, that's it, guys. I hope you guys have a blessed week. Remember, guys, in Ephesians 6:12, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of this age. So remember, guys, keep your heads up, keep grinding, keep your head in the book. Jesus wins. So that's all that matters. So, all right, guys, have a blessed week, and we'll catch you later.